All right, let's dive straight into this explainer and see how AI is fundamentally accelerating and really just reshaping the entire software testing cycle. Look, if you've been working in dev or QA recently, you absolutely know the feeling of that Friday afternoon panic, right? When a massive code push inexplicably breaks your entire test suite. Development velocity is skyrocketing, code is shipping faster than ever, and let's be honest, traditional testing methods are really struggling to keep up with the pace. But today, we're going to look at the data, the trends, and the cutting-edge frameworks that prove we are entering a totally new era of quality engineering. Imagine reducing your test case creation time by up to 98%. Actually, just pause and think about that for a second. We aren't just talking about a minor efficiency bump here, or saving a few minutes. We are talking about a complete paradigm shift. Tasks that used to take days of staring at screens, manually parsing complex requirements, tracing dependencies, writing out those exhaustive step-by-step test cases, all of that can now be generated in a matter of seconds. It fundamentally frees up your team's mental bandwidth for the work that actually matters. To understand this shift, we'll break down the testing lifecycle into a few key areas: the QA bottleneck, instant test generation, self-healing execution, the rise of agentic AI, and finally, the human-in-the-loop model. Okay, starting off with part one, the quality assurance bottleneck and how we overcome testing debt. For years now, QA engineers have felt the tremendous pressure of rapid deployment cycles, basically getting bogged down acting like mechanics who are just endlessly repairing broken scripts. When CI/CD pipelines truly matured, engineering teams started shipping more code, faster, but often with smaller QA functions supporting them. The testing infrastructure built 5 years ago just wasn't designed for this kind of chaos, leaving testers perpetually playing catch-up. Traditionally, nearly half of a QA team's resources, about 45%, were entirely drained just by maintaining regression tests. That's time spent updating locators just because a developer tweaked a CSS class name, or fixing brittle scripts that broke during a totally harmless UI update. It creates what we call testing debt. It's where you spend way more time fixing old tests than writing new ones. You're basically a mechanic for a car that's already driving down the highway at 80 miles an hour. And when maintenance eats up more sprint time than new test creation, your testing strategy is actually slowing down your release cycle. The contrast we're seeing now is just night and day. We are finally moving away from brittle manual automation and stepping into AI-augmented systems that continuously learn and adapt. Traditional automation runs on strictly predefined scripts, right? It's completely deterministic. It requires a manual update the second an application changes even slightly. But AI-augmented automation, it's remarkably dynamic. Instead of failing because a button moved 2 pixels to the left or its color shifted from blue to teal, it just adapts on the fly. It generates test coverage, intuitively adapts to shifting interfaces, and prioritizes risks with significantly less repetitive effort from your team. Ultimately, this means your quality assurance scales smoothly with your development velocity instead of just scaling with your headcount. Let's move to part two, instant test case generation, going from a blank page to a full test suite. So the really crucial point here is that this acceleration kicks off right at the beginning of the cycle, during test design. Modern AI tools use large language models to instantly translate your natural language user stories into comprehensive, highly structured test scripts. You no longer have to squint at a super vague JIRA ticket and manually deduce every possible functional requirement, boundary condition, or obscure edge case. You just feed the requirement or the acceptance criteria directly to the AI, and boom, it effortlessly outputs a beautifully formatted suite of test scenarios. We're actually seeing teams report a 40 to 60% reduction in test authoring time for standard flows using this exact method, and honestly, it is completely transforming sprint planning. But, and this is a big but, an AI is only as good as its instructions. Testers have to master prompt engineering. You need to define the role, provide real concrete context, explicitly state your output format, and set hard constraints. You can't just casually ask an AI to write test for a login page and expect enterprise-grade results. No way. You have to tell it to act as a senior QA engineer, hand it the actual JSON schema, demand a specific output like a markdown table, and most importantly, constrain it from inventing features that simply don't exist. Because, well, we all know AI loves to be overly helpful and hallucinate things if left unchecked. This discipline of structured prompting is exactly what prevents those hallucinations and ensures reliable, repeatable test coverage every single time. All right, part 3, self-healing and smart execution. Finally fixing the brittle script problem.
Let's look at execution, because this builds into solving the most painfully frustrating part of automation: script maintenance. Look, getting tests written quickly is awesome, but it honestly doesn't matter if they break the very next day. But utilizing self-healing locators that automatically adapt to UI changes, teams are reporting up to an 80% reduction in test maintenance time. Think about how many times a pipeline has failed just because a dev innocently changed an element's ID from submit BTN to BTN-submit. It's maddening. But this is where machine learning truly shines. If a developer moves a button, a traditional script throws a massive error and fails the build. A self-healing script, however, is continuously monitoring the application's DOM and visual layouts. When a failure is detected, the algorithm just calculates alternative locators and dynamically repairs the script right there during execution. Your pipeline stays green, and your testers stop acting like mechanics.
Plus, we now have intelligent test selection. It analyzes recent code commits to run only the tests that are most likely to catch regressions, drastically cutting down your CI/CD pipeline time. Instead of blindly running a massive suite of 10,000 regression tests on every single minor commit, the AI looks at the specific files changed and cross-references them with historical defect data. It intelligently figures out, hey, maybe only 300 tests are actually relevant to this specific build. This means developers aren't waiting an agonizing hour for a massive test suite to run just to safely merge a simple typo fix. You get incredibly fast feedback loops without sacrificing any meaningful coverage, which keeps engineering momentum incredibly high. Moving right along to part 4, the rise of agentic AI. We're going from assisted to fully autonomous. As we push the boundaries of testing, we enter the absolute bleeding edge, the era of agentic AI. This is arguably the most significant long-term shift happening in quality engineering right now. Agentic AI goes way beyond simply assisting. It autonomously explores your application, detects critical user flows, and dynamically maintains tests without any human scripting at all. While an assisted AI waits for your prompt to do anything, an AI agent just acts on its own. You give it a URL, give it a high-level goal, and it will relentlessly navigate the site, identify the checkout process, map out complex user journeys, and generate deterministic test code entirely by itself. It is purpose-built for continuous validation in highly dynamic environments where manual oversight is just way too slow. Now, I know some folks get worried about their careers when they hear this, but the data heavily shows that AI replaces low-context, repetitive labor long before it can ever hope to replace high-context human judgment. Will AI replace some manual QA tasks? Absolutely. It's already replacing the tedious work of writing out mundane test cases and updating broken CSS selectors, but it cannot understand business-critical nuances. It doesn't know why a user is taking a specific journey, and it definitely can't tell you if a newly designed flow feels clunky, confusing, or somehow violates your brand's core trust with the customer. And that brings us to our final section, the human-in-the-loop model and becoming a quality orchestrator. This really is the ultimate evolution of the QA professional, shifting from a script mechanic to a quality orchestrator within a human-in-the-loop model. Pure AI is inherently probabilistic and severely lacks human empathy, but purely manual testing is just far too slow. The winning strategy is undeniably a hybrid approach. In this workflow, AI serves as the high-performance engine, handling sheer volume and speed, while the human acts as the pilot, intelligently steering the strategy and evaluating the user experience. You let the AI engine excitedly churn through 10,000 permutations of a form field, or tirelessly maintain the daily smoke tests. Meanwhile, because the AI cleared away all that repetitive grunt work, human engineers finally have the time to focus on complex, edge case, exploratory testing, defining strict acceptance criteria, and auditing the AI to ensure there are no false negatives. There's this really powerful insight from the Ministry of Testing that reminds us, every AI evaluator is a tester at heart. It perfectly proves that critical thinking and human curiosity are more vital right now than they have ever been. The fundamental question in QA is actively shifting. We are no longer asking, did the script execute without crashing? Instead, we're asking a much more important question. Did the system actually validate the business risk, and what meaningful insight did we learn from it? That takes a true tester's mindset, something an algorithm just doesn't possess. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought as you look to accelerate your own pipelines. Your AI can effortlessly run 10,000 tests a minute, but do you actually know what it's testing? Automation volume is not a proxy for quality. The sheer speed that AI offers is absolutely incredible, but it still takes a human orchestrator to ensure you aren't just shipping bad code faster. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope it completely changes how you think about your testing cycles going forward.